Hey everybody, it's your old pal SimplySuperDave coming at you from the great state of Louisiana, here in these crazy United States, on this crazy planet spinning out of control in this vast, endless universe that we call life. How is everyone doing? It is the last day of April, which means tomorrow is the first day of the month on a Monday out of all days of the week. It's going to be a hectic one indeed. The first day of May. That's right. We got the first day of May already upon us. Summer is here, folks. That's what May says to me. And so I hope everybody has a great summer as we wrap up the podcast for the first 100 episodes, as we're getting pretty damn close. I think this one is number 98, if I'm not mistaken. We may actually, I don't know. I didn't pay attention. I am not paying attention. We may be at 99 for all I know. So we are pretty close to 100. And I just want to say, over these past 100 episodes, if you haven't listened to any of them yet, I am not like most podcasts. I do try to pass on information in each episode that deals with kind of a topic that maybe you could deal with in an open-minded setting, because a lot of people seem to be closed-minded or trapped by their own minds. And what I mean by that is, like, we all have issues in our lives, and if we let them, they can control us. And even though we can control our issues, we have to face reality that they're always there. They never go away completely. So when you accept that fact, then you know at some point you're just trying to maintain who you are and the crazy side that you have in you. And we all have it. I know I have my crazy side. And I try to I'm pretty good at keeping it calm and just locked down and just quiet. Like, I can navigate through a lot of stuff, but if you tap me, poke me, get me involved, then I can't promise you what will happen, what side of me will come out. And I'm not saying they're all bad sides, because I am an interesting, reclusive introvert. Because once you get me open and out there, like I do with the podcast or a stream, once I get into it, I'm open. I am blawing all kinds of stuff out. And I will spend a lot of time. I could spend time with you locked up in a cabin all weekend long. And by the time we leave, you can know everything, like what I like and stuff, but you can probably never know much about who I am. All right, because I'm very closed off, but I do have a lot of defensive mechanisms I use through conversation, and that's just how I navigate and work. I like mindless conversation. I think those mindless conversations usually lead to a deeper thought or into a serious thought. You know, I don't think you should ever start out with a topic really in mind so much as you discover the topic in conversation. And that's always been kind of my method. And like, if I ever did live TV or something like that, I would really have a hard time as an artist, because they would have to have things submitted before, like, here's your programming. And if you go off script or whatever, it's a big deal. It's meticulous, you know. And I like the element of surprise, to the point of nobody except who works on the show will know what is going to be broadcasted and what will happen, because that's what I love. But that's, I guess, the challenge of what network TV was, and what made movies like Broadcast News, for example, one of my favorite movies of all time, the movie Network, very famous movie. We're fed up. We're not taking this shit no more. And very good movie. If you need to drop back to both of those. Broadcast News was a very famous movie, in my opinion. Holly Hunter headlined that movie. I want to say Albert Finney, but it ain't Albert Finney. Albert Brooks played in that movie. Of course, he played the voice of the father in Finding Nemo. So if you love that, then that movie's right up your alley for sure. And then, of course, the late William Hurt, who passed away last year, who was in a lot of the Avenger movies as General the Thunderbolts General. I want to say Lee, and I know that's wrong. That's my Dukes of Hazzard side coming out. Yes, I used to watch Dukes of Hazzard. I'm not a racist, though, because actually that dealt with a lot of things like racism and stuff, and that was always something where I learned that racism was bad, is from the Dukes of Hazzard. I think a lot of the morality tales in a lot of the shows, because they were made in a time that put real shit on TV. I didn't realize how honest All in the Family and the Jeffersons were until later on in life. How honest that show was, and how critical for people like me who didn't, know any black people really, except for the ones down the street. And we were just kids, so we didn't know any better yet anyway of how life was, for adults. But if you watch the Jeffersons with your mom and dad or grandparents every night, then you got an in-look on how people talk, and what's going on, and the jive, that's so white of me to say that. But I am white. I don't deny that I'm going to say things probably improper and shit, and if people get too offended by language or how other people talk or try to relate, as long as there's a good vibe there in what they're saying, then other people need to get a sense of humor or a fucking leeway. Because if you don't have any leeway in your conversation with other people, then you're doing it wrong. You gotta be able to expand inward and let that information from that side come in a little bit, because a lot of it you might agree with. They're just going a different way with it. And you can still hang on to what you believe and still hear other options. And as long as you're more well-informed when you're making your decisions rather than just making a blind decision, I think that society could move forward a lot better. And right now we're so muddled down with misinformation. I get labeled with that on Facebook a lot. I make a lot of posts as jokes or whatever, like a robot stopped working, as someone made a whole thing out of it, like the robot was programmed, and after 15 minutes of realizing what it's going to do forever, it just ceased to exist anymore. It stopped working and just collapsed, and it said it was no point in doing it. And I found that to be hilarious, because I made a relation to how people work, and it's like, what's the point to it sometimes? Think about it. It's good to care about what you do, but know there's a line. That's all I'm saying. Know there is a line. If it takes full commitment, put full commitment to it, and you see a lot of athletes do that, but they do have time to focus on family life as well. A lot of things do consider that, and when you're given the option to in normal life, is harder, because you're just trying to maintain enough money. I mean, you could take a year off as a millionaire, and then it might hurt you in the bank as how much money you might have in there, but you still be okay a year or two or so. You know what I mean, folks? And you got the people out there that if you get hurt and you got to take a week or two off from work, you might be having to look for another place to live. And that is the difference in America that we deal with on a daily basis. It keeps us stressed out, that I try to talk to you about, to keep you staying super, because it's going to be there no matter what. You're going to have to deal with it. That's life. That is the ball of wax that we all have to deal with in our bubbles. Hopefully you got $1 million laying in the bank, so if something happens, you can not maybe worry so much, and life doesn't change too drastically on you, because life works like that. 1 minute you think you got it all going one way, and it just takes a little dash of this or a little dash of that, and it all goes sideways. I am the master of driving on icy roads in a small car. We had a week of actual snow and ice. And I mean that literally, like we had actual snow that got about 3 inches off the ground. And then it started to kind of rainishly sleet. and then it froze overnight, and then we got more ice. We kind of got like an ice storm. Anyway, it was insane. It stayed around for an entire week around here, and that was crazy. But in my little Honda Civic, yes, a Honda Civic, I was navigating out there on them roads like the craziest of them all. I knew my limits, though. I knew I couldn't go uphill very fast, and there was no uphill for me, so I had to keep everything limited and knew I can go up, And I knew, I'm from Louisiana. I know my limits, but I've been to places, I've actually been in Las Vegas when it snowed once. It was crazy. Very, very unique moment. Very unique moment. Yes, the Simply Super Dave has lived in Las Vegas before. A lot of interesting stories there. Worked with a guy that was nicknamed Joe Dirt and lived up to it. He could shovel the hole in the ground like a groundhog himself. It was amazing. Hell of a work ethic, too. Some of the hardest workers out there never get the credit that they seem due. But I also watch them self-destruct as well. A lot of people out there are on a self-destruct timer. No matter how good they got things going for themselves, they always let themselves get in their own way. And they don't realize that they'll find a fault to blame or point their finger in a certain direction, whichever it may be. But the point is, no matter what, it still comes back to what you decide. How you feel about things. What you put yourself in the position to deal with. Sometimes decisions you make now that may seem insignificant end up being very vitally important decisions you make down the road. But you don't know it because it doesn't play out yet. They're like seeds in the ground you plant here, and you hope down the road they all make sense later on. Sometimes it may be a decision that the other person doesn't like, or the other party that you're dealing with, but you make the best decision that you feel like makes sense for both parties, instead of making the compromising position of giving them the leeway for whatever guilty reason they may give you. Because a lot of people use guilt and victimization as a way to get other people to bend, to deal with their problems. And I get that. I understand a lot of people have been through shit. I make that very point. But the thing is, everybody has. Okay? So that, along with, victimization is something that's private. Just like whatever your gender is, that is a private situation as well. It's nobody else's business. It's something that shouldn't be discussed out open or in the streets. Whatever you want to be at home, I don't care. I've always believed in that. I have been so open-minded to, because a very close relative of mine came out when he was 25. Very close, grew up with him. Should have known. Looking back, there should have been telltale signs. Madonna was a huge fan of his. He was, and I loved MC Hammer, and he's over there loving Madonna, and I got it. I loved her music just like anybody else did, but I just didn't see it. And I love him to death, because he, if it wasn't for him being a vital, important person in my life, I wouldn't have got to. And I lived with him for like 6 or 7 months, and he had roommates that were just like him. They were gay, and but then you had parties. I would go with them. Of course, what's cool is if you're very confident in who you are and you're cool with everybody else, everybody gets that you're just like a tourist. You're just you're there for the party, but you're not going to the back rooms or anything. You know what I'm saying? So it's pretty cool as long as you respect a different lifestyle. They they tend to respect you and take you in and through and show you through and see where you're willing to go. That's all up to you from there on. It's almost like, for instance, getting the invite back in the day from a very popular person that everybody tells you's popular. He's a cool guy. His name's Jeffrey Epstein. Go to his island. It's amazing. So you go to the fucking island, okay? But about halfway through the island, you realize, well, there's some fucked up shit going on here. I'm gonna go ahead and go back. I don't want to stick around. I'm cool. I'm not interested in this. I got my own thing, and I would be out. And that's the reason why I say I don't care about the flight logs so much, because I know those are just invites. I just want to know who stuck around and took the bait and wanted to be a part of all that kind of stuff. That is a lot of the podcast, we kind of touch on that and make that very clear in one of the earlier podcasts. So I say, like I said, go back and check out a lot of the earlier podcasts. I try not to be too repetitive, so when I touch on something, I try to go into it and I leave it alone. I try to, at least. And some things that are vitally important to me that I like to keep you aware of, and I think AI, that once we get around to that, and a lot of things that we have talked about early on, like the mark of the beast, and how that virtually kind of ties into the AI theory and what things that can become. Because, as humans, we don't have the power to stop what is becoming. All right, it's all about adaptation, becoming adapted to your surroundings, becoming better and evolving with it all. Because if you don't, you're going to get left behind and tortured in this life. I'm telling you, folks, it's going to be crazy. It's like anything else. You can either use it as a tool or you can use it as a weapon. It can either help you or it can hinder you. And sometimes you need the weapon. Don't get me wrong, but most of the time, life hands you things, and it can either be a hindrance or it can be something that's helpful. It can just weigh you down, or it could be something you can use. And a lot of people hang on to those things that weigh them down, and they never let go of them. And I think that's a lot of where our victimization comes from, is because we tend to remember we went through these things, and we don't want to ever stop reliving. We get stuck in the moment, so to speak. And I really recommend, if you have never listened to the U2 song Stuck in a Moment, I say look that one up and listen to it. And it's very overwhelming theme there. And catch the video if you can. That's even better. But use your own moment. You keep living in it. And I think we've gone over that in several of the podcasts, where I talk about life is one continuous moment. It's never in the past. It's never in the future, but you can either or would be. And a lot of us get stuck in the past. And sometimes us get stuck daydreaming about the future so much. But when you do either one of those too much, it's okay to do it, stay in the moment for a little bit, but you got to keep moving. But the moment's still going to keep going, That's the thing to remember. Either one of them's going to hurt you, because you're not paying attention to right now. It's like driving a car and you're looking down the road, but you're not paying attention to what's right in front of you. Or the same thing with, looking back there too much, but you're not paying attention to what's in front of you because you're stuck in the rearview mirror. You got to let things go. You're continuously moving. If you ever want to pull the car over and have a meal and reflect about the trip so far, that's a good idea, and that's a good way to handle life. But at the same time, you got to remember, life is going to be just like the road. You don't know what's going to be out there. Even if it's the same path you take every day, you never know if there's going to be a coon or a deer that runs out in the middle of the night. You never know who's going to have a wreck. You never know when your vehicle's going to break down. That is how life works. I think we all can agree on that. That is how it works. And it's up to you how you're going to navigate the ship through all the waters that is life, the vastness that is life. Your bubble. Which direction is your bubble going to float? And what's in that bubble? Have you figured that out yet? What energy are you? Who are you? Don't say your name. That's just your name. Who are you? What defines you? What's your role? What would be put on your tombstone if you died? And I'm talking about today. Here lies so-and-so. He will always be remembered as a daddy, stepfather, good friend, thief, disgrace. It's up to you. It's usually not going to be, he was a great realtor. He's a hell of a plumber. Best guy to visit at a video store. No, those aren't going to be on the tombstone. I am a weirdo. When you run into me, I will have unique conversations or talk about things that hopefully you still think about. Even if I walk away, like, you'll be like, you wouldn't believe what this crazy white boy just said. He said something about Trump is da-da-da-da-da, or something Dave Chappelle said on Saturday Night Live. I like finding very thought-provoking conversations to have with everybody, no matter where I go. And so no matter what, and if the closer you are to me, you'll have little deep conversations with me, or things where I kind of steer you in a different direction than maybe, I don't know. I try to listen to everybody. I've always like, my favorite scene, one of my favorite scenes from Jerry Maguire, one of them, is the scene where he's over there at the house, and she's in there doing something, and the kid wanders in and sits on the couch with him, and they have a conversation. No matter how old I've ever been, 20-something to now almost 50, if I come in contact with a small, young child, human thing, then I always have treated it just like an adult. If it starts talking, I shut up and I listen, and then I talk, and I see how it treats me, and I can tell right there what kind of manners and so forth, and blah, blah, blah. And it's fun. Those are the best conversations in the world, because it's very interactive, and it's all about the conversation, and they're very happy to be having one. And I love kids. I love our kids. I love our younger generation. I love watching them go through the very same kind of things we go through, but in a different settings. Watching, for instance, my kid generation here underneath me, since I don't have any biological kids, I just kind of stepped in and adopted 3 kinda for many years, and it's changed my life, and even more, like, I feel like I would have been a pretty damn okay dad. I don't think I would have been dad of the year or anything. I think I would have been the weirdo dad, but in moments that it mattered, when you had your toughest times, if you needed to call somebody, I would be honest and straight with you, but also in the most, hey, silver linings kind of way. And the silver linings thing in my life is a very important thing, besides being a Detroit Lions fan. And what I mean by that is, because if you're in a thunderstorm or in a storm, the sun is always, and it's the daytime, the sun is there. The sun is there behind the clouds. There is a sun. So when you're looking for where the sun is, you look for the silver linings of the clouds, because behind those silver linings is what you're looking for and waiting for, to see if it can break through those clouds and change the destiny of your days. I think we all look forward to the sun always breaking up the rain for all of us. But anyway, folks, I hope everybody enjoyed their spring, and I hope everybody's enjoyed the podcast so far, that if you've listened so far. And thank you to everybody and all the support that I've gotten over the past few months while I was doing it. And like I said, 100 will be the last one for now, and I'll be taking somewhat of a break and reevaluating exactly what I want to do, and and what I want to do as a content creator. So mostly check me out. I follow me on Twitter. I do share a lot of content there. Facebook is another platform, but I am shadow banned on that. My posts are restricted to the lower part of the feed for the next 90 days forever. And that's okay. YouTube is the place to catch everything that I do. And of course TikTok, if you dare to venture onto the dangerous platform of TikTok. By the way, don't let just certain platforms be your only source of information. Branch out a little bit, check them out. If it's something different, I say look into it. And the reason why I say that is because a lot of media isn't paying attention to some of the serious things that's happening in the world that can affect your bubble. And you always want to be on the outlook of that, because like I said, it's okay to be looking ahead down the road to look for the speed bumps that you need to avoid so you don't bottom out your car. And next thing you know, your bubble's on the side of the road, got a leak in it. And the next thing you know, your bubble's deflating and you're freaking the fuck out. And we don't want that. We want to stay super. So you got to live a little bit ahead. And you always kind of got to reflect in the past. But don't forget, you got to keep moving. You got to keep swimming, just like Albert Brooks, looking out for his little Nemo. Well, we all can use just a mindless friend from time to time to keep us preoccupied in conversations and such, like a Dory. And I think we all need to find the humor in life and not take it so seriously. Stop being the victims of your life and let them be the lessons of your life. And correct yourself and live the right way that you know is right. And get used to that just like you do your own afflictions. It's easier said than done. Okay? Coming from the horse's mouth. But it's very possible. All right, folks, but when you do it even with your wickedness if you must. But with a little love and laughter, you'll conquer all that hate and fear. So be a conqueror. Don't be a victim. Simply Super Dave. Almost out.